Thanks, Greg. I want to introduce you to AAEEBL. And the one thing you have to remember about AAEEBL is that it has 2 A's, 2 E's, a B, and an L. And if you can remember that, you can always find us on the web because we're just AAEEBL.org. And before I go too far into talking about AAEEBL and why it's important to this audience, is I want to introduce the co-leader of AAEEBL. I'm just one half of the leadership of AAEEBL. And the other half is Judy Williamson Batson at this back table back there, standing up. It's not something that can be run by just one person, nor should it be. AAEEBL is the global professional association for the ePortfolio community. We have institutional college and university members in 4 countries, including United States, Canada, UK, and Australia. And we have corporate sponsors in all of those 4 countries as well. This is our website. It's a brand new website. It's a very social site. It's a site where people around the world can join in, and we have work groups on this site. We have blogging ability. We have all kinds of ways for the ePortfolio community to connect with each other. And that's our purpose, is to be home for the global ePortfolio community or profession. Now you might wonder, why do we have to have an association for a technology? Because usually you have a professions around some sort of academic activity or a certain kind of initiative that involves people. And then here we are, a professional association for a technology. We don't have a professional association for Microsoft Word or a professional association for an LMS. Why would we need a professional association for an ePortfolio? And the answer is that ePortfolio is a technology, but it's also a movement and a set of practices and a whole new approach to teaching and learning. Now, ePortfolios, in essence, cut across all the fields that many of you represent. It's a transformative technology. So I'll try to explain more about that. What we focus on, excuse me. Oh, I'm sorry. Coughed the wrong direction there. I should hold my mouth this way. Learning has been a certain way for a long time. All of you know the problems with the legacy model of teaching and learning. And so we see ePortfolios as a way, a pathway, and a tool that can enable transformative change in college and university. And then, in essence, to bring it home to this community here, to this conference here, is that, in essence, we're looking at a transformation on college and universities, campuses, so that the students there become experts in PLAR or whatever name you use for that general activity. I guess it's RAC in Quebec. And so by getting students to use ePortfolios as their undergraduates in college and in university, then they become capable and interested in and able to present themselves, to have their own work recognized throughout life, not just within college, but then throughout life. So in essence, we're saying higher education should be producing PLAR experts. And so we see ePortfolios as a way to do that. So one of the things we're focusing on this year is how we're calling engaged learning. We're trying to say, what is the essence of ePortfolios? It's trying to move toward engaged learning. And it's by bringing together a number of different threads that have come forward in the previous 30 or 40 years. One of them is more recent, high impact practices, which was published by the Association of American Colleges and Universities in 2008. It was by George Koo from the University of Indiana, and he talked about the high impact practices. Now, I'm sure most of you have heard about high impact educational practices. It's all about experiential learning and service learning, and about doing things in real life and doing things in social settings, pedagogical learning. The 10 or 12, whatever it is, high impact practices, that have been proven to be superior in engaging learning. So that's one practice, that's one thread that has been around for the last 5 years. We're now looking at also, people have been talking about learner-centered education for a long time. We're talking about learning as an ongoing activity, learning-centered learning. Also in the last 40 to 50 years, education or learning, research into learning has been going out of the field of education or psychology and into other areas such as cognitive science and anthropology and linguistics. And so we're getting evidence from a much larger array of different kinds of inquiry into how people learn. And so we're becoming aware that the way that we have been teaching college students by listening and remembering is kind of surface learning, and it's not really engaging the best learning abilities of humans. And so we now know that learning starts more with experience, and so we want to bring that aspect in, and that's why we have experiential in our name. And of course, we think we're beginning to be aware of how information technology can enable a lot of different kinds of learning, because after all, information technologies allow you to be out of the classroom, in the world, to be mobile, to be going anywhere, to be active in your own pursuit of data or knowledge, information. So technology is liberating learning, and so we don't have to follow the same models that we had to before. So that's in essence what we are looking. We see ePortfolios as a way, and that's what we work with. We work with all these institutions who are members to help them bring about transformation on their campus at the deepest level. AAEEBL is 5 years old. It's a nonprofit in the U.S. It's U.S.-based, but it has members in 4 countries. It is the ePortfolio establishment, basically, globally. It's international. It's one of the things that we find is that because it's become such a profitable market, that ePortfolio vendors are leading it off into all, they could be redefining what ePortfolios are. They can be selling ePortfolios that do nothing that we think is really important for this transformational ability. But so we talk with them. We work with our vendors. Excuse me, just one second. My apologies. We work with vendors. We have new vendors come in and say, well, we think we can do this as an ePortfolio, so we're going to push this around the world as an ePortfolio. And we say, no, that is not an ePortfolio. You will sell that, and people will be disappointed, and you will be a failure. So we can't allow you to do that. And so we are, in a sense, guarding this notion of what an ePortfolio should do, this set of functionalities, this ability to support group work within an ePortfolio, this ability to keep ePortfolio as a learning space, not just a tracking space, a space that is personal and owned by the learner, that has the ability to search through your evidence, your artifacts, the ability to present it all in a website, and to have variable websites that has different, that ties into different evidence, so that you can use your ePortfolio for different occasions in your life. So as long as we see an ePortfolio that has all those functionalities so that it retains its value, then we are happy with those vendors, and we happily partner with them. So that's one function of AAEEBL, is to sort of hold the center in terms of what ePortfolios are. And we have institutional memberships and corporate sponsors. The big picture right now about ePortfolios, they're global, they're all around the country, all around the world. There's hardly any country. When we look at who comes into our website, we see 120 different countries where people are visiting our website. So we know that there's interest and actually activity around the world. It's a industry that now is making a lot of money. The vendors who talk to me say they're having record years, 2011, 2012, 2013. So obviously, and we're getting new vendors in, and we're getting vendors with different kinds of business models, different ways of using ePortfolio. So it's a thriving industry. We have found from a survey published in September that now over 52% of all U.S. higher education students use ePortfolios at some point in their college career. And 7% of all U.S. higher education students use ePortfolios for all of their courses during their entire college or university career. So it's spreading. We think that close to 2/3 of all U.S. higher education institutions use ePortfolios in one way or another. So this is competency-based and engaged learning that's now popping up around the U.S. is this competency-based and engaged learning. We are seeing centers for engaged learning pop up here and there in many places, and they are using that name as a shorthand for an ePortfolio supported move to a new paradigm of learning. We've heard from the Carnegie Foundation, which invented the credit system, that they are looking for ways to replace that system, which is another very hopeful sign. So I think the big picture is that there is slow movement institutionally, not just in the US, but around the world, toward a basic new form of teaching and learning. We see that on some campuses that the way to facilitate this change, this institutional transformation, is by providing a student group that works with faculty to help them with the technical issues of working with ePortfolios. We see programs, major programs or general education programs, or even the whole university, requiring a capstone ePortfolio to encourage students to integrate the knowledge that they have throughout their whole career. It's particularly valuable for something like well, I'm not sure if you have general education programs by the same name in Canada, but we do have that in the United States, where you take a potpourri of different courses from different fields to get, a liberal arts, a general liberal arts education. But the problem has always been, well, people say that's cafeteria learning. You learn this and then learn that, and it's all like separate dishes. But so the ePortfolio, then, if you challenge the students, no, we want to see, this concept that you got in this department, this field, and write about how those ideas were expressed differently in those different fields. So there's a strong push toward integrative learning and thinking by using the ePortfolio as a capstone. Online learning, we find from the same survey published in September, a national survey, that almost all students are now using online learning. That is, in many cases, not required by their instructor, but they are just going out there. Open educational resources is suddenly a burgeoning field once again. It's exploded onto the scene a number of years ago, and now is once again becoming all these resources, courses, the MIT Open Courseware Initiative, and so many other universities that have followed. So there are thousands and thousands of courses and resources now on the web, and students are going out there themselves just to find things to use for their own learning. We find that at our own conferences, and we have 4 or 5 conferences every year, AAEEBL does, we find that at our international conference in Boston every year that we are not getting just individual faculty members or a person from the IT unit, but we instead are getting deans and provosts and vice presidents and higher level administrators are beginning to dominate our attendees, because they are leading transformation on the campus, and they want to find out from their peers around the world how other campuses are carrying out this transformation. So that is our big goal, is to bring about global change. So we're here for the first time to let you know about AAEEBL. It's obviously anyone from a university can join. I mean, we accept institutional memberships or corporate sponsorships, but anyone can go to the website and register and be a member of the website, which is where you can find out from others. You can communicate with people. You can do a directory search. You can find other people around the world who are involved with ePortfolios. You can visit our blogs and our groups. You can join a group. There is a Canadian group that we have set up on our website. So you could connect up with other people nearby and talk with them from our website. On the 19th of May, we'll have a one-day conference at the University of Michigan. That's not too far away from here. Hosted by the University of Michigan and led there not only by the University Library, but by, as I mentioned before, the University of Michigan Center for Engaged Learning. And then our big annual conference is July 28 to 31 in Boston. We would love to see some of you from there. Those are our email addresses on the slide there, and I thank you very much for your attention, and I think we're going to have some questions and answers after Robert speaks, so then we can see if you have anything that you want to add to what I said. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Trent, for sharing your work with us and introducing us to the AAEEBL organization. I expect many of us will be connecting with your organization in the months to come. Our second ePortfolio speaker is Robert Smart, and again, Robert's bio is in the back of the program. Considered by many as the founder of vocational ePortfolio technology, over 20 years ago, Robert continues to develop and supply ePortfolios to some of the largest organizations in the world. Using ePortfolios to document evidence of skills and competencies for employers, regulatory bodies, and academic assessors are just a few of the areas in which Robert is working. Ladies and gentlemen, Robert Smart.
Thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to sort of view me for the next 20 minutes as your entertainment. Because when I was first asked to speak at the Kapla conference, to give you an idea of how my mind works, I immediately thought of Kapla, which in Klingon means success. I had no idea of the organization, but the more I read about it, the more I found that this was actually a fantastic organization, and I'm honored to give a presentation about what I would view as an unapologetic view. And even though I spend a lot of my time teaching, training, and assessing, and we look after a lot of universities and colleges, the focus of my talk is about how the commercial sector view and use ePortfolio technology. As is mentioned in the preamble, I've been doing this now for nearly 25 years. It's a long time. Those of you who remember Windows 3.1, that was the first ePortfolio that was developed many years ago, and you could only ever have file names of 8 digits, and you can imagine how difficult that was to actually get some sense out the system. I need that, otherwise I can't change my slide. So, from my perspective, I'll give you the viewpoint from the commercial sector. As I said, you know, my background is educational as well, but I think it's important to try and get a different perspective from what the commercial sector view ePortfolios from. Now, I know it's a bit wordy. There's obviously going to be an opportunity to take the PowerPoint away with you at the end, but from a corporate perspective, they're on about minimizing the risk, identifying the fact of where are my gaps, what's my risk, where are the competency levels of my staff, what have I inherited, the mixed match of different occupations, to identify what needs to be done in a targeted manner against any form or multiple criteria, and to make the portfolio broad enough to do any form of the onboarding, the induction, the assessment, the reflective, the learning, the whole process. Now, what we found was interesting from our perspective is, if I'm going to give you a bit of a case study about what happened in the early days, BMW bought out Rover Group. They had no idea what they bought. They had basically 5,000 technicians, engineers, managers, supervisors, customer service staff, and they had no idea their level of competencies. So they had to come up with a process and a framework that allowed them to assess these individuals to a standard that they felt were, you know, good enough for them and their marquee and their brand. So they looked at the skills profiles of what they wanted to assess, the gaps, the risks associated to the business, target training, not to train the whole thing again, but actually just target the gaps, and then measure them against what we would perceive as competencies, which is skills and performance to do a particular job. There's another factor why the commercial sector is leaping, what I perceive in my experience across the world in 27 countries where I've worked, doing ePortfolios, is that there's now an even greater need for them to use ePortfolios from a legal defensibility position, and I'll come back to that in a minute. But to give you an example of how diverse ePortfolios can be in a commercial context, if you go into a Nike store, as an example, you can do a full competency-based qualification and award through the till. The till does it. That's pretty radical when you think about, what technology can do, but that's a commercial viewpoint. It knows who's logged on. There's your authenticity. It knows what coupons it's been issued, what refunds, this and so on and so forth. So it builds a profile up of that individual about where they're performing and where their gaps are, where their weaknesses are. They can target the training and learning as a result of their performance over given weeks, linked, which I'll come to in a minute, to academia, which is a very important and supporting process. So when we look at the commercial sector, the overriding driver for ePortfolios is it had to have no productivity impact, no loss of performance, productivity. It had to increase my cost basis and to ensure and minimize my risk. But more importantly, to get the ownership and buy-in was to reward the employees for doing that process. Now that's where you have to team up then with academic and educational establishments that as part of that competency program, you pair it and match it automatically through cross-referencing into a qualification or something of equivalence. So that when they do something at work, they get that qualification almost as a byproduct. And that's what many, many organizations are now doing around the world. So this gives you an example. So what they do is they take their evidence, video, audio, testimonies, job cards, or whatever the case may be. They would drop it into a particular task. I've done this particular task. It would then cross-reference automatically to a set of industry competencies and academic competencies, and then give them the training to identify what's needed to top up to gain those particular processes. Now, when we've done that, and we've done that successfully, as you saw in some big corporate companies, the results have been nothing short of actually quite remarkable. If we look at some of the statistics, which I'll come to in a second, is we've applied this principle to an organization called Casper. Casper the Friendly Ghost, as I like to call it. It's a wonderful organization, somebody that's engaged with us now to develop a vocational competency validation portfolio in relation within Canada using the principles and experiences that we've learned in the last 20 years. It will have automatic cross-referencing technology. It will have automatic development plan creation so that when the individual goes through the self-assessment or the competencies, the gaps are automatically identified, the development plan is created, the resources are linked automatically to go away and learn all that, and then come back and then evidence it with their video and audio that someone can then remote assessly. So that's how it basically works. And I'll be demonstrating that actually product tomorrow in my workshop at 2:45. Now, interestingly, in the last couple of weeks, in the United Kingdom, the government have been saying, we've got to do more vocational education, we've got to do more vocational training. It is not the same as the traditional academic route. And lo and behold, your employment minister said exactly the same thing 2 weeks ago. Bringing back vocational high schools, we need to fill the gaps, we need to make sure that individuals are not having skill shortages. It's echoed everywhere. There's no difference really around the world. We're all doing the same thing, especially with multinational organizations. But another driving factor in industry is the fact, and this is taken from a Canadian perspective, is that transparency is the centerpiece of any process. A tick in a box or a certificate is no longer good enough if cross-examined, and I'll use that phrase loosely. Here is your case law in Canada. Video is considered a higher legal position than any paper documentation. So, hypothetically, if a corporate business comes under scrutiny with all the social media and everything that's going on today, and they're being challenged or potentially being prosecuted, unless their defense is of an equal footing, they're already at a massive disadvantage. And this is the other driving factor now, that in Canadian law, unless the process and structure of the technology being used is regulated, controlled, under a certain set of environments, which is what it is there, which is why you can't use Facebook, LinkedIn, and web pages and so on and so forth, it's got to be controlled. This is why businesses and companies and organizations now are turning to ePortfolios to demonstrate their legal defensive position in case things go wrong. Now that said and done, as I said, we've worked with many colleges and universities, about 600 across the world altogether. In our 3 leading companies, we've got 250,000 people at any one time doing competency-based assessment. And to give you an example of how efficient an ePortfolio can be, in BMW, through their particular process, they can assess, monitor and verify 5,000 people with 12 people. That's how good it can be if you get it right. But there's a lot of mechanisms and a lot of process. But as I put it there, Canada, and I'm moving to Canada, so don't let your accent put you off straight away. We are a Canadian company. Canada is poised actually to be the beacon, the best in the world there is at competencies, assessment, training and education, because you basically looking and getting all the best bits from around the world and not having all the baggage that's gone through in the last 20 years. But by crikey, I've seen this before. Be very careful. You're right on a knife edge and you could be heading towards a complete dog's breakfast if you're not careful. Deja vu is the word I like to use. And it's a wonderful phrase at the bottom. It's not incompetent people that destroy a business. It is those that have the power to do something about it and don't, that will. And thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. You have helped us understand the power and potential of ePortfolios in the world of work, and we have greatly appreciate your insights. Thank you. My name is Amanda Roberts, and I am the PLAR coordinator at St. Polytechnic and a member of the CAPLA board. It is my pleasure to thank both of our speakers today. It is clear that both Trent and Robert have been and continue to be the pioneers in the field of ePortfolios. We commend you for your innovative work, entrepreneurial spirit, which celebrates and supports experiential learning for learners of all ages. Thank you, guys. I'm just going to step off the stage quickly, and I'm going to present you both with some gifts of our appreciation.
Thank you. Thank you. I don't want that. I just got the kiss. That's good enough.
So thank you again, and please accept our gifts and best wishes for a happy and healthy holiday season, which is right around the corner. So this conference would not be possible without the generous support of our sponsors. So I would like to take this opportunity to once again thank all of our sponsors this year. Our sponsors include the Government of Nova Scotia, Department of Labour and Workforce Development, the Government of Ontario, Yukon Advanced Education, the Government of New Brunswick, Northwest Territories Department of Education and Culture and Employment, and Kwantlen Polytechnic University. I've been asked to remind you of the CAPLA Annual General Meeting, which will be held immediately following the afternoon workshops today from 4:15 to 5 in the Melinda Gallery. This year's AGM is of particular importance and exciting because we are ratifying our new bylaws. So everybody is encouraged to come and vote at the significant meeting in CAPLA's history. Refreshments will also be served. So tomorrow at lunch, you will be on your own, although you might want to make plans to do some networking with colleagues during this free time. We've asked some of our working group chairs to manage a lunch and learn type session for you. If you would like to have lunch with the others from the conference, please take note that there will be 4 areas in which to choose lunch partners. 1 is the RPL Standards and Quality Assurance Working Group. 2 is the RPL and Immigrants Group. 3 is the International PLA Network. And the 4th is the PLAR Education and Training. If you're interested in an informal chat on any of these topics tomorrow, please contact with the following people who I'm going to ask to stand up shortly at the registration desk. You can sign up at the registration desk. So here again are the working groups. RPL Standards and Quality Assurance would be Deb Blower. Could you please stand? So if you're interested, check with Deb and make sure you sign up at the desk. The second is the RPL and Immigrants, which is Eileen Kelly-Freak, which is right here. The third is the International PLA Network, and there's Miss Gail Hall right here. And the 4th is the PLAR Education and Training, and the details will be at the desk for that one by tomorrow morning. I've been reminded to let you guys know that we have about 3 to 4 more spots for the ACCC networking dinner this evening. It's at Vertical Restaurant. This event I've attended every year, and it has been so much fun, but so engaging and so many opportunities to learn. So I'm really plugging this for this group. It's The sign-up sheet is at the registration desk as well, and the group is meeting in the lobby at 7:15 this evening, and then we'll walk over together. We will not be having a plenary session tomorrow, so we hope you enjoy the remaining of your workshop sessions. Please remember to fill out the conference evaluation forms, which will be circulated at the last coffee break tomorrow at 2:30 p.m. on Tuesday afternoon, so tomorrow. Your business card as well, have that with you, because you're going to be entered into a draw for a chapter's gift card when you return that completed the completed form at the registration desk prior to the beginning of the last workshop at 2:45. Before I wrap this up, because we've got 5 minutes, we can take questions before we can break out to our next sessions that start at 1:45. So was there any questions that we have for our amazing speakers? Silence means you had the best presentation, and everybody is bought in and are just in awe right now. So
I really believe that.
I believe that, yes. So thank you guys again. On behalf of the Capitol's Board of Directors, we greatly appreciate your support of our yearly conference and hope that you enjoy the program and networking opportunities that you'll have over the next day and a half. Have a great conference.